Hey guys, welcome to this next tutorial. This tutorial is going to look at this part on my snow speeder, which I've referred to as the tow line. If I just open up the cockpit here, you can see there's the cockpit, and at the back of the cockpit you've got this sort of round or sort of semi-spherical shape here, and then you've got this, in the movie they call it a tow line launcher. It's basically a black rod that pivots inside the circular section here. So the idea is for this next two tutorials to show you how to do the base, and then in a separate lesson how to draw the we'll call it the blaster or the cable launcher, something like that, and then how to put the two together. So just a little bit of background before you sort of start drawing is whenever you've got two parts that are fitting together, you've got to work out how you're going to draw them and then how you're going to assemble those in Fusion. So whenever you see something circular drawn in Fusion, always think that, well, if I have something circular like here on the base, if I have a similar cylindrical surface on the other part, like I've got here, this black part here being this the launcher part, we should be able to use that geometry and that geometry there to be able to assemble things later on. So a little bit of pre-thinking about how you're going to get things to go together doesn't hurt. You can see the could see the different parts through the skin there. Anyway, so let's look at this base first. You're just going to have to listen to me for the sizes because I don't have that on a drawing just at the moment. So first of all, let's have a look at the completed one. You can see here the completed one. If I'm just going to roll back the timeline here at the bottom, it's just going to give me a preview of what things look like. So I started out with a sketch, and that sketch included this rectangular shape at the bottom and then this quadrant of a circle here. Once we've drawn that equal to the dimensions, we then revolved it around the axis. You can see it's now revolved that sketch, and after that I then drew another rectangular section on the plane that goes through the center of the object. And if I turn that around, you see it there. Might go like that, might make more sense. And then after that plane was drawn, I then shelled it, and the last thing to do was to then extrude that surface forwards and backwards to make that cut for the black part to slide into. So you had to measure the parts, and I had to make a sketch and write down lots of measurements. But first of all, let's go to Fusion and let's start with this sketch here that we require for the body. So as usual, File, New Design, and then File, Save. I'm just going to call mine Base Demo, and I'll delete it later on. Make sure it goes in the right folder as usual. Click on Save, and we'll go to the Sketch command, and we're going to draw this profile of the half the base, and then we'll revolve it around. So I'm just going to choose either of the vertical surfaces, either that one or that one, doesn't really matter. I'll choose that one. And then I always start off just by drawing one line and making it the right length. So go to Line, go to the center of the axis here, click once, and then the distance that the sketch is from the center to the outside is 3.25 millimeters. Hit enter, and you can see the first line is in. Zoom in, so then all the other lines are going to be in the correct sort of proportion to that. So what I get you to do is I tend to bring the dimensions below the object, or I should say on the outside of it, so it's less confusing. Okay, so this blaster is a total height of 6 from the very bottom to the very top. So once again, use my line command, click once, type in 6, hit enter. And now I need to put in this circular arc. I know that's going to be equal to this distance here of 3.25. So use C for circle, or I can click on my circle command. Come down this axis some random point, click once, and then snap it to the end point. See how that square comes up? That means snap, click it to there. And then we've got to edit the size of this. So I'm going to go into my dimension tool, click once, drag it away, and this is going to be a diameter of 6.5, which is a radius of 3.25. So 6.5, and enter. And you can see here now, if I now draw a line directly vertical up from here, it should become tangent around there. So line tool, from the end of this 3.25 line, click once, drag it up, and you can see as I get close to the edge, it actually comes up with the tangent constraint. That's that circle with that little line on it. Once you've got that constraint visible, click again, and you have created all the lines that we need. I tend to trim off the parts we don't want, so T for trim, get rid of that part, and get rid of that, which just leaves us with the remainder. Alright, so that sketch is now completed, and we're going to revolve this sketch. So if you can see up here next to extrude is the revolve command. Let's click onto it, and it's asking me first of all which profile do you want to select, and because we had that selected, or because maybe it was the only sketch that was there, it's already determined that that is this profile that you want. If you didn't want that one, you simply click on the X, and then you can select it again. The next box is asking for the axis. Where do you want to revolve this around? So if I click into the collector box to go into axis selection mode, and let's just muck around here, but let's choose this bottom line here, and you'll see a preview of what would happen if I chose to revolve around that line, which is not the shape we're after. That's an interesting shape though. I'm just going to deselect that. I'll choose the correct edge, like so, which is what we're after, or I could also select a weird edge like this one here. And you can see you get some very interesting shapes by using the revolve command. As well as selecting the correct axis, just choose it again. Oh, the wrong one there. Select. Make sure I've got a line selected. There it is there. You can also change the amount of degrees that's actually revolved. You can do that on the screen like this by holding the little tab down and revolving it around, or you can type manually in the distance here. Or you can go full or angle, and you can go to a particular plane if you wanted to. Let's go angle, let's try 360, and direction is just going one side of that. A new body is correct, and then click on OK. Alright, so you've now got the base part, and we need to cut a piece out through the center here, so that the handle part has something to go through. I'm just trying to get this part here, which we're going to draw secondly. So this circular cylindrical part has to have a hole cut it in the base so it slides into it. If I go to here, you can see clearly on here how that has to be cut out to allow this part to slide through. So I'll just tell you what the dimensions are rather than you having to measure them, because you actually have the piece anyway. We'll go back to the drawing. So this time the workflow is that I'm going to actually select a plane inside here and put that rectangular shape and extrude it both ways. Now at the moment I can't actually see the plane until I click on sketch. Once I've clicked on sketch, I'm going to select either of these two vertical planes. Doesn't really matter as long as those planes are going through the center. You can see that plane or that plane, doesn't really matter. Alright, so I'm going to choose that vertical plane there, and I'm just going to draw a random rectangle round about where I think it might need to go. And as I'm doing that, I'm being careful not to let it snap onto something. So you can see that blue square is a snap. I don't want it to snap onto something. So around about there. I don't really know exactly what sizes yet. Then go to the dimension tool, select one side, drag it out, just hit OK at the moment. Then do the distance from the bottom of the profile to the very bottom of your object and drag that out. And I can tell you that distance is 3.5. Yep, 3.5 it was. Okay, so that's brought the base of this rectangle down the correct position. We also need to know how wide the slot is that we're after. So let's put a dimension on that as well. And I can tell you that the width of that slot is 1.8. And then you might notice that once I put that 1.8 in, the rectangle is no longer centralized over the object. So what we'll do now is we'll put a dimension from the outside of one of the edges of the rectangle to the center point here. So I click on the outside edge and I come down to the center point. You can see it pre-highlights as I drag over it and drag down like so. And if we want this to be equal distance around the center line, it's 1.8 divided by 2, which of course is 0.9. Excuse the dog barking in the background. So now you've got that rectangle in the correct position, and the distance from the bottom is correct, its width is correct. We can finish the sketch. I like to turn things sort of side on so we can see what's going on. There we go. And then the last thing to do, or second last thing to do, is then to extrude this sketch so it goes both ways. So I'm going to select the profile, go into extrude. You can see it's selected there, profile, and I'm just going to experiment with this direction bizzo here. You can see as we go through the options, one side, two sides, or symmetric. Let's choose symmetric, which means whatever distance I pull it in one direction, it will also pull it in the other direction. So pull it out far enough so it cuts through all of the object. Make sure it's set to cut and click OK. And I'll show you what I should have done with the shell as well. So let's try shelling this now and see what happens, and then I'll show you why I should have done that first. So click on shell and then click on the object. Actually, we should need to deselect that face first. So go to the bottom here. That's the face that we don't want. Oh, I clicked on the wrong one. I clicked on a hole. Sorry, my mistake. No shell. There it is there. Select the surface that we don't want to shell. Now this shell is a little bit different to the usual one. It's only a thickness of 0.75. And click OK. And then if we go back up top here, something weird seems to happen. It's like it's filled the object in, which isn't what we're after. So what we need to do here is actually push the shell back in front of the last extrusion that we did. So we're going to delete that shell, and then I want you to get the little marker here, which is the controlling the time frame, and I want you to grab it and move it back one before that last extrusion that we did. And while the marker's in that position, let's shell the object. So click on shell, roll it, select the bottom surface. We're going to say 0.75 thickness, and then hit OK. And then after you've done the shell, then move the timeline marker to the end, and then you can see it's then applied the cut through the shelled object. So that's a really handy skill to have, of being able to move the timeline back and then put something in and then move the timeline forward. So provided you don't change too much, it works most of the time. Alright, so there's the basics about doing the base. Next lesson we'll do the launch, or whatever you want to call it, and then we'll put the two of them together. Save that before we forget it and have a crack at that.